Welcome back to the C.I.C. Lounge. I'm Peter.
I'm Jen.
And today we're going to be talking about
Strange New Worlds.
Episode 2.
What is it?
Season 2, Episode 2.
Season 2, Episode 2.
Ad Esther per Aspera.
Ad Astra per Aspera.
Which means, that is Latin, that means to the stars through hardship.
Right.
So this episode, right off the bat, is letting you know that it's going to be full of hardship, full of drama, full of trials and tribulations.
Literal trials.
Literal.
So this is something Star Trek does periodically, which is a courtroom drama episode.
Yes. I mean, the very first episode of TNG was filled with...
well, Farpoint and Q putting humanity on trial.
Yeah.
There's that. Yes, definitely. And the events of the pilot episode of the original series, the menagerie in the cage, like the menagerie was the trial of the pilot episode, of the events that happened in the pilot episode, which of course is crucial to Pike's entire backstory.
Yes.
So, but yeah, courtroom drama. A lot of shows that do a courtroom drama usually incorporate like flashbacks. They're called clip shows. So it's a cheap way of putting an episode together because it doesn't require a bunch of sets and a bunch of actors and whatever. It's just all takes place primarily in one room, and then they do like flashbacks to episodes they've already shot.
Yeah, previous episodes, previous seasons.
They didn't do that this time.
I'm so happy they didn't do that.
They did a couple of flashbacks to Una's childhood. One of the things I think they could have done was, rather than have Una sit on the stand and tell her story, show her story. Show the incident where she broke her leg, show the incident where the kids are taunting her and whatnot, or add sound design of the screaming and the taunting and whatnot to kind of make it a little more visceral.
You know, that's where I got to diverge from you on this one.
Yeah.
I'm glad they didn't do that. Like, having an episode to show her past, absolutely, I'm okay with that. I'm actually all for that. I have a lot of questions for the augmented people, because this is a society that I never knew about. Yeah. And I've got some questions about La'an as well, but that's neither here nor there at this moment. But no, I find that a little cliche and a little, just, I don't know, blasé, for lack of a better word, to do that. Like, have the kids screaming and making fun of them, making fun of her in the background, like it's, her memories are popping up. I like what they did. Like, out of all the episodes of Star Trek where, the TNG crew is being on trial, Cisco being on trial with, whoever he's in trouble with or trying to defend from, be it the prophets, be it Cardassians, the Cardassians. And even in Voyager, they had trials, being on trial in that show as well. This one, I think, was, in my opinion, by far the best trial episode that Star Trek has ever done. Absolutely.
I was confused about the set.
The set was a little...
I was really like, why is there a donut in the middle, a donut hole in the middle of the courtroom? Why is the bench and there's this I don't understand the layout.
I'm still wondering if there was like a hole in the floor, like
right.
Legitimately a hole, like
I did not understand this. I'm guessing they just reused a set from something that had already been built, and because I've seen that design like in Discovery and stuff like that, so I'm guessing it was just a reused set. But I'm like, this makes no practical sense as a space. Like, we have this random corridor with this stuff here. Like, this would be a great place to hold a trial. Like,
yeah, no, perfect.
Sure,
we got this.
Sure, okay. So as all the production design and elements. Like, again, another beautiful episode. Great lighting and cinematography. I was just really confused about the layout of the courtroom. Did not make a whole lot of sense to me.
Well, what was her name? Near Catal, played by, I'm going to butcher her name, but I thought she was brilliant. Itaid Badaki, the woman who played Una's attorney.
Oh, yes.
She was incredible. Nailed it right off the bat. Was just absolutely fantastic. You know, she knew that she was good at her job, and so she has this air of superiority, but it wasn't so overpowering that you hated her character.
It was a nuanced portrayal of a one-off character, because you're probably not. I don't know that we'd have a reason to bring her back. Who knows? It's Star Trek; they could bring back people all the time. But
They bring people back from the dead.
but like and I think this is something that like Strange New Worlds does pretty well, for bringing in a character that's only going to be in one episode to give them sort of a depth, because a lot of times in the past when Star Trek has done this, the guest stars tend to be a bit two-dimensional because they're only there that one time. So I like the effort that they're going in to create rich backstories, nuanced connections and relationships between the characters. So yeah, casting was brilliant. Her portrayal of that character as the prosecutor, fantastic.
I want to see her do more.
Sure.
Maybe not necessarily in Strange New Worlds, but I want to see her on screen more often.
Yeah. And I liked Admiral April, being on the witness stand, having to testify. I thought, we've talked a little bit about how admirals in general always come off as kind of being assholes, like they're very two-dimensional. But I really liked April's character. I think they're trying to overcome that Star Trek trope of admirals have to be like these bureaucratic stuff shirts, which they did a really good job of. The judges.
Oh yeah,
and the prosecuting attorney, the Vulcan, played that really well.
He played it really well. No, I loved. I knew it was. I mean, it's Star Trek. Obviously, Una's gonna come back again. Spoilers,
right?
So you know what's gonna happen. You already have that feeling because it's of the show itself. It's not Game of Thrones where you're just gonna kill somebody for whatever reason you want to. But watching Nira examine Admiral April, I was like, oh, I know exactly what she's doing. She's putting not the Admiral on trial. She's putting Starfleet on trial.
Right.
And there's a lot, like Jen and I have talked about this, and I've talked to other people about this. Like Starfleet is, in its own way, its own worst enemy.
Oh yeah.
And they can be construed as the bad guys.
Definitely.
And they have been many times over. We've seen episodes in Discovery, in the OG Star Trek, in TNG, every season, every show, there's something where Starfleet itself is the problem, is the issue.
Is the villain, is the enemy. Yeah. Definitely.
And so this one was just shedding light on the fact that they are not perfect, and the code of conduct, the laws that they follow are not perfect.
They are not. The whole premise, of course, obviously we talked about how Strange New Worlds is allowed to be a lot like the original in social commentary. And so you see that in this trial, because it could have been racism, sexism, religion, any of those isms could have been on trial in this episode. And in this particular case, it had to do with genetic engineering and the eugenics wars and the aftermath of the eugenics wars and the fear that caused. And again, the defense attorney did a real good job with the cross-examination of April to really convey that point, that this is really based on fear, not science, not even logic.
Well, and that was one of the things that was running through my mind, is because the Federation put that law in place because it was something that happened on Earth.
Right. And I believe it actually predated the Federation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was I think it's supposed to be like 300 years before the Federation was even a thing.
That's all before.
Yeah.
So
their prejudice against altered and enhanced people, it's due to their own failure as a society of coping with it. You know, just because you didn't have the math correct in your, augmentation of human genome doesn't mean that somebody across the universe couldn't have figured it out, which clearly what's the species called?
Illyrian.
Illyrian, thank you. The Illyrians clearly figured it out.
Well, I don't know if they made it clear if like Illyrians are a specific species or if they're an offshoot culture.
That is one
Like
thing.
I couldn't figure because they look human. So are they human who have taken a cultural practice of genetic engineering, or are they a different species? Because this is Star Trek; they could look human and be a different species, like
Yeah.
betazoids and whatnot. So I'm not really sure what the distinction is there. There's a lot in this episode that I find very interesting. That when Una Chin Riley's planet, which is in some nebula, which has an atmosphere that's not friendly to humans,
That whole scene was great.
when that planet is becomes some sort of protectorate of the Federation, that's when prejudice and hatred start coming to the surface. And just talking about how the Federation and Starfleet can sometimes be their own worst enemy. And I found it interesting that if you think about it, she's asking for asylum from a Federation world
Yeah.
by Starfleet. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, wait, what?
So I when I went back and watched it the second time, when the prosecuting attorney is reading it, she says asylum from Starfleet, not Federation asylum, Starfleet specifically. Because I was thinking about it, when someone normally asks for asylum from a Starfleet captain, it's within Federation space. It's not Starfleet specifically giving them sanctuary, it's the Federation. But this episode, they specifically stated Starfleet because that's her loophole to stay in Starfleet, is that she gets her sanctuary from within the Starfleet organization itself. So she should have asked for it from the very beginning. And April would have had the capacity to grant that at her admission.
But then would she have been able to go through Starfleet Academy and move up the ranks the way that she did?
Well, the way it's implied, Starfleet gives her sanctuary as long as she's within Starfleet, she's protected. That's the nuance of it. And so Deep Space, this is not an episode, or this is not an issue that gets resolved within the timeline of Strange New Worlds, because Dr. Bashir in Deep Space Nine, season 5, That's comes right. out that he's been genetically modified. He was genetically modified when he was 6 or 7 years old as a boy. His parents took him to a planet where it was done, and modified him, and then he did not disclose that on his academy application, whatnot, and as a result his father went to prison. In this case they didn't punish Bashir so much as his parents for breaking the law, because he was a child, he couldn't consent either way. But he did lie about it because he knew about it. So so it's not an issue that's resolved.
No.
In the 100 years between Una Chin Riley and Julian Bashir. And who knows if it's been resolved after that, because in the later iterations of Trek, they haven't talked about genetic manipulation. It sounds like in that episode of Deep Space Nine that maybe they're on the road to it, but they bring up the same things about where there's a Julian Bashir, there's a Khan Noonien Singh.
And that's something that we found out in this episode, is that La'an is actually a descendant of Khan.
Right.
Be it like a cousin or a direct descendant, we don't know. But
so because they didn't specify, I saw that as she's a descendant of someone with genetic modifications. So she has not been augmented, but she does benefit from augmented DNA.
Exactly.
Which is probably how she can tolerate so much Klingon blood wine.
That's what popped in my head I saw that too. I was like, that explains so much.
That would explain it,
And why she's got a chip on her shoulder all the time.
And I think there's a scene between La'an and the defense attorney where, they talk about how you've been taught because of your name that you have this monster inside of you or whatnot. And you're just born with the ability to take actions, good or bad, just like everybody else. And I thought that was brilliant. Like you can own your genetic identity, and it's fine. It's acceptable to do that. So, because I've always felt the character of La'an, and for legitimate reasons, given her backstory with the Gorn and whatnot, has been very cold.
Yes.
You can see it in her hair. It's so tightly pulled back, so pristine, and the way the actress walks and talks, it's very closed off, very rigid. And I'm hoping that we get to see a softer side of her moving forward as she sort of embraces her identity.
I think that there's going to come an incident where after something happens, she's going to be able to just kind of take a deep breath and relax.
Yeah.
I really do. Be it this season or the next season, I think that something's going to happen. There's going to be like a 2-part episode. It might be at the end of this episode or end of the season, in the beginning of next season, but I think that we're going to get that side of her. I think you're going to.
I hope so.
See that part of her.
I'd like to see that. So
yeah.
she's offered 2 years and no, not 2. She's offered like just walk away, take your dishonorable discharge, and it's fine.
Yeah,
you know,
but with it was 2 years of like probation or something like that.
Like it, you know, she could get up to 2 years in prison, but it goes to trial. They slap on
20 years.
And the 20 years is not because she lied. The 20 years is because they charge her with 2 counts of sedition.
Yeah, what was the sedition?
I'm trying to, because I looked up. Sedition is conduct or speech inciting people to rebel against the authority of a state.
Yeah, so where's the sedition?
At most, she's petitioning to have a law change. She is not saying down with the Federation or down with Starfleet. Like, so I don't know how the sedition, because the defense attorney is the first one to broach it with Pike when they first meet. Like, she could be charged with sedition, and then she's charged with sedition, but they don't explain how is that. So if there's a lawyer out there who could explain to me how sedition relates in this case, I'd really like to know, because that part didn't make sense to me. Yeah. But that's the part that carries the heavy penalty. The sedition, not the fact that she lied on her academy application.
And I want to know, like, if anybody ever watches our show, the script writers, what was the seditious act that she's being accused of?
Right. Speech
existing
or conduct inciting people to rebel.
Yeah.
Because
it sounds cool.
It sounds, you know, sedition's a scary word. Like, you know. Moving on with the episode, there's a point where I think it's Pike's girlfriend, like, because they had a thing early on in like season 1, like just in one episode. So there's a relationship there, which I'd like to see more of that. Whatever, but she's about to. I want to see more of Pike. Yes,
like see more.
Like
of
even
him.
in this episode, I did not think we saw enough of Pike. So
okay, calm down. I'll go get you a bucket of water.
It's out of here. So anyway, she stands up to cross-examine Chin Riley, and then the Vulcan's like, "I got this." You know, and he walks over with his Vulcan swagger, and it's not about emotion, but it's clearly all about emotion with this Vulcan. You know, and he asked the question, when did Pike find out? And I'm thinking about this. The defense attorney, she objects. Objection, relevance. The judges never rule on the objection. The Vulcan goes into some diatribe and then asks the question like 2 more times, and then finally Una Chin Riley answers. But I'm like, I don't think she has to answer because of, like, I would assume there's some sort of plead the fifth or incrimination element in play. Like she can be held in contempt, because I would think that, not knowing the outcome, if it were me, do whatever you want to me, but the minute Pike's on the line, no, we're done.
Yeah.
Hold me in contempt for failing to answer that question, because I will not incriminate my shipmates. That's just not how it's done. And the question was inappropriate and should have been, you know, the objection should have been sustained.
Yeah.
But the 3 judges never actually ruled on the objection.
Well, I mean, okay, you got to give them a little leeway with the cross-examination, because Una's attorney, they kept telling her to stop her actions when she was examining April, and she wouldn't shut up. She just kept pushing forward and kept pushing forward.
There was a lot of shouting.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of shouting. And I did notice that, her name is escaping me, but the prosecuting attorney, Pike's girlfriend or whatever, like,
oh, I forget her name.
She kept saying objection, but she was yelling it. And
I didn't understand that.
My thinking was that she was probably directed to deliver the line like that, thinking there'd be more powerful music underscoring the scene than there actually was. So she just comes off as, why are you screaming?
Yeah.
Like, I can hear you. I mean, I realize there's this big hole in the floor or whatever, but This room echoes. Like, I can hear you just fine.
I was wondering the exact same thing. Like, why is she being so loud? We can
I do think there was probably the thought would be some more sound design under that, so it would create more tension or more drama.
I mean, there wasn't even an audience in the room. It was
No.
literally the three judges, stenographer, which I don't know why you would have a stenographer in the future.
I don't know.
And then, the
Prosecution
and defense.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I did think that was weird. And then what I'm guessing is that there is some sort of agenda somewhere to take down Pike. Because there was no reason for the Vulcan to go after Pike. None whatsoever. There was no evidence that suggested Pike even knew. Una turned herself in. That's where the evidence of her violation came into play. How does the Vulcan know if Pike even knew?
And she's already admitted it at this point,
right? So the question of her genetic identity isn't an issue, but how would he know if Pike would know ahead of time? Well, Pike could have just as easily been blindsided, like everyone else. So how did the Vulcan know that Pike knew before? And why would he press the issue when the conspiracy isn't what the trial is about, the hearing's about? So I'm thinking, well, maybe someone wants to take out Pike.
That's maybe some good foreshadowing.
There's some element, like, because there's other. I couldn't figure out. Well, okay, drama.
Yeah, yeah.
It could just be written off as drama, but that would kind of be boring and lazy writing. I think play into that. Is there an element within some Starfleet judiciary or some?
Well, I mean, at some point, Kirk needs to take over the Enterprise, right?
Right, and I don't know when that happens in relation to when Pike's accident happens.
Yeah,
the he knows it's coming too. So yeah, I'm not sure on the timeline or the circumstances, but I did find it interesting that there's no reason to go after Pike. Pike has a fairly impressive service record, as does Una Chin Riley. Yeah. So I don't know why they have their panties in a bunch to begin with over her lying on her application, because she is the quintessential Starfleet officer. She's exactly the kind of person they want serving in Starfleet.
Exactly.
And you would think there would be a stronger advocate for her within Starfleet.
And I'm sorry, what did April say at the very end of the first episode of this season? We need every good officer we can get.
Yes.
Because the Gorn are on the way.
Well, apparently the Judge Advocate General doesn't know that. Because they pressed the issue and took Una Chin Riley off the Enterprise.
So there's, the more we talk about this, there's layers upon layers. I think this is going to be a good onion of a season.
I hope so. I hope so.
I mean, 2 episodes in, and I can't find, other than nitpicking some BS, which I fully admit that I nitpick the shit out of certain things that don't need to be nitpicked. But I don't see anything wrong with this season so far. It's beautiful. The script writing is great. The character development has been really, really nice so far. We dove into Una's past with this episode, and now she's free and clear because, obviously we lost her at the end of last season.
Yes.
And I thought it was going to be a struggle to get her back for the whole season. I didn't think we would get her back until halfway through, and we've got her back in the second episode.
I am grateful that we have her back in the second episode because I love that actress. I love the character. I love the dynamic. I want to see more between Pike and Una Chin Riley, them playing off each other and supporting each other, because as a chemistry between a captain and a first officer goes, you see it in the last scene.
Yes.
Like Pike gets a little bit emotional and hugs her at the end. This is a true friendship and companion that, and it's not romance I'm sensing.
No.
It's totally platonic, but it feels very genuine. And I think that's one of the things I've always found fault with in Star Trek, particularly The Next Generation, is the lack of physicality between the actors when it comes to showing affection. Good job, Geordi. not even a handshake
Yeah.
or a pat or a literal pat on the back. It's like
No.
you can hug each other. Friends hug each other. Like you can do that. And I mean it gets better, you know, in like the movies and stuff. There's a little bit more physical contact between the actors, but it's like there's this boundary, particularly in the next gen series where it's like, nope, we can't touch.
Yeah.
Like we're best friends, but we can't touch.
Yeah.
And I always felt like that came off as being disingenuine
Oh,
to
absolutely.
how people actually interact with each other.
Yeah, that is I would have to agree with you on that. With these new seasons, Discovery, I know that's not your favorite show.
That goes the other way. That's like way too touchy-feely and cryy
Yes.
and emotional to the point of melodrama.
But maybe they had to go overboard because we haven't had enough, and now we've gone too far, and now they're zeroing in on what we really want and what we really need with each episode of the show. And I think Strange New Worlds is really nailing it on the head so far. Like I said, I have no complaints so far. I'm just waiting for that one episode that I'm just going to be like, oh, okay, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong.
Haven't seen it yet. And,
no, not yet.
And we haven't talked about season 1 of Strange New Worlds, which we'll probably do after season 2 ends. We'll go back and review those episodes. But I am loving what they're doing with Strange New Worlds. I just found out today that Star Trek Prodigy was canceled. Season 2, I heard, is in the can, has not been released yet.
Is that the animated show?
It's one of the animated shows,
Okay.
and it was targeted for children.
Yeah.
I tried watching Prodigy, like the first 1 or 2 episodes, and I had trouble getting pulled in. And I'm not the target audience, so maybe a 6-year-old would enjoy it more than I would. I don't know, but
I saw the trailer and wasn't interested.
So I mean, to me it felt like a Star Wars animated series more than Star Trek, which is fine, and if you have an audience for it, that's great. But there's been a lot of concern that because of all the changes at CBS and Paramount and streaming services and intellectual property, like, okay, we've got 2 Star Trek shows that have been canceled, Prodigy and Discovery. What's next on the chopping block? And I think, well, by cutting Prodigy, you're opening yourself up to something else. Like I think there is money to be made in Star Trek still. Yeah. I think it's a very successful, very viable franchise. I think, Discovery opened the door, but Discovery probably wasn't the best vehicle to kind of rejuvenate the series into modern television.
Yeah, probably not.
I think the initial conception of it was like, if they had stuck with their initial thoughts on the Klingon War, the 4 Years War, that kind of a thing, I think they would have. But for whatever reason, they went in a different direction. Whatever. And this isn't about Discovery, but I am interested to see where this goes now. If there's going to be a Star Trek legacy led by Jerry Ryan, we do know that Michelle Yeoh is supposed to get a movie, a Section 31 movie. They were trying to get a series out of her, but her star is too far in ascension. She's too big of an actress now to do series television, I think.
That
I mean, she's fantastic.
That's why it sucks, is because she's so fantastic. We would love to see her piloting another ship, captaining another ship, piloting.
And I think had the pandemic not happened, there might have been an opportunity for that. But, so Star Trek Picard is done, Discovery's done, Prodigy's done. That leaves us Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks, and I haven't heard anything on Lower Decks.
Lower Decks is hilarious.
I love Lower Decks. It's Star Trek that doesn't take itself seriously,
exactly.
and it's exactly the balance we need to every other iteration of Star Trek. So
what is it? The Nausicaans that are like the primary bad guy in that show?
Yeah.
And the Nausicaans are just like the dumbest species that somehow has warp capability. Well, I mean, obviously Lower Decks is going somewhere. They have at least one more season, because at least 2 of the characters from Lower Decks is going to make a appearance, I think, in episode 7 of Strange New Worlds season 2.
And we'll get there and have quite a lot to say about that.
Oh my God, I cannot wait.
Very excited to see what's coming up. Well, you said like this is one of the best trial episodes, and I have very few notes for this episode, because there was, I did feel like the reason I felt it could have used some other elements is that I don't know if you watched it twice.
I did not watch it twice.
I watched it twice. So on the second viewing, it starts to feel a bit long, because they're just dialogue scenes. The actors aren't even moving all that much.
So if unless you have something,
No.
okay. So feeding off of that, that is exactly why I think this is one of the best trial episodes that Star Trek has ever done, because in every single episode that they've been on trial, whoever's been on trial, I've been bored out of my mind going, when are we going to get back to the action? Well, I just want to see a spaceship out in space, something to get me out of this monotony. I was riveted the entire time. I was like, okay, the defense attorney is on point. Everything that she's saying, you might not understand it at this moment, but it's all going to circle back around. And then they did when she pulls out the book and she's like, oh, the law, blah, 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 states. And then you hear Una's voiceover doing, saying, I sought asylum. I did not feel safe. I feared for my life. And I was like, I knew it. Everything came circling back around. And that's why I think that this is one of the best. It's not, I mean, me personally, again, everybody has their own opinion, but I was riveted the entire time. Normally, I'm bored out of my mind. I'm not the smartest person in the world. I get bored very easily when it's just nothing but talk.
Well, so I think part of the reason that you were able to connect with this episode has to do with the caliber of the performances.
Yes.
You're talking about actors at the top of their game delivering on a show that's got a pretty decent budget. So there's an expectation they have to show up every day with their A game. And these are actors who are very appreciative of the legacy that they're a part of. And so that makes it easy, because you can put any one of those actors in a chair and say, all right, start talking, and you're going to be riveted.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to deliver. And I think that works. My issue is that on rewatch, you won't be as riveted because you know what's coming.
I mean, that's fair.
So I do think that there are times where it tends to hang a little bit. Like, and on first watch, I didn't have a problem with it. But as I was going through and taking notes, I'm like, yeah, they kind of beat this point a little more than they need to,
Well, I'll watch it again and circle back next.
And it is a matter of taste, you
Yeah.
know, and it's totally fine to have, different perspectives. I think in a trial like this, like in this case, there was you had April, you had a couple of the crew members, and you had Unich and Riley, but there was no video evidence, there was no physical evidence.
Mm-mm.
Like, so there were kind of elements that you normally see in a trial that weren't there, that I think could have broken up the monotony of just these very long dialogue scenes.
Well, I keep thinking back to one of the episodes of Voyager, when Janeway was trying to defend, I forget who it was she was trying to defend, but she was talking and speaking on behalf of her crew, of the Federation, of herself, and it just felt so forced and not genuine. It's like, this is clearly a writer wrote this and da, but this one was just like, it felt passionate.
It did.
And again, that goes back to what you said about the performer performing. And yes, this woman, I forget her name. You'll have to edit this. I'm just gonna say her last name, Badaki. She's incredible.
And I think they're able to deliver performances like that because it is a reflection of what we're seeing in society today. We are seeing a lot of injustice where this could be a trial over gender, over religion,
and she states
race,
that too.
And that makes it easy in the sense that there's a lot of material that's current and relevant to draw on as a performer to deliver lines like that, to deliver a performance like that. So even though, Rebecca Roman is a white woman, a fairly privileged class, she can stand there and play the victim. Yeah. Because in the show, she is. So.
Yeah. I really appreciated this episode. I mean, it's really hitting on a lot of current event things. Mm-hmm. And it's just a reflection of where we are right now as a society and where we could be.
I think at the end of season 1, when she's taken into custody, it's a big blow to the audience. Like, I was like, oh no.
I know. When I watched it, I was like, whoa.
I'm like, and I was really hoping, like, I really like her. Please don't drag this out. You know? And so, okay, 2 episodes, it's fine. She missed
She's back.
She has one scene in the first episode, but it's all season, the second episode, and all right, now we're back to playing games. So I'm really excited to see what's coming next. And
like I said, I thought that they would. I was worried that they would, but I am very happy and pleased that it's like 2 episodes. We've got her back now. Next week, what's going to happen? Bring on the shenanigans.
And
kids.
other than the strange or the Lower Decks crossover, I have no idea what's happening week to week.
Yeah.
I'm deliberately not reading ahead or trying to get spoiled about what's in the pipeline because I want to be surprised
trust me when I say this, that's huge for her. She studies everything.
So I don't really have anything else to say on this episode. It was just good from beginning to end.
Yeah, I mean, usually I have like 2 pages of notes on episodes, and this one I've barely got half a page.
Yeah, it was
and they were all like, wow, this was really awesome. Wow, the the scene in the cafeteria with Spock and
the Vulcan prosecutor.
The other Vulcan, and that was just hilarious.
I loved that.
When he goes walking over, he's like, I'm sorry you had to see that outburst. And it's like they literally were whispering to each other and there was no physical action.
That was brilliant. I loved it with Ortegas and the doctor.
When she's like, "Oh, I want to go," like
that it's those moments that I think I missed, seeing in other series. That they don't have to be long, they don't have to be drawn out, but it's that you can see something like that actually happening, like 2 people sitting down and then.
Oh, I know that it would actually happen because I've done that.
Exactly.
I've been that jackass sitting across the hall going, "Oh, well, I want to be like, oh."
Yeah. So I appreciated that scene.
100%. Like, and again, the episode, I have no complaints, none. It was great.
So. Watching the trial, the crew was in some conference room on the Enterprise.
I think they were in the ready room.
I don't know what room they were in, but I'm trying to imagine what it must have been like on set that day to have them all in one room.
Okay, you're gonna stare at the screen, and you're gonna look concerned.
I just see this
now
cast
confused.
I just see this cast bonding really well and having a lot of fun together.
I would love to see some behind the scenes with
Right?
this cast. Like, do y'all go out to the bars together?
Right.
Do you like?
And as a director who's worked with some ensembles, it gets squirrely when you put all those actors in one spot.
What she's talking about.
Peter knows exactly what I'm talking about.
I've never gotten squirrely on set.
It's like you have to budget extra time that day to get everything because they will get squirrely.
Hey, Josh and I were always perfect.
Right.
Insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's all I have for today.
That's all I've got. Well, thank you all for tuning in to us again. We look forward to seeing you guys next week. So I'm Peter.
I'm Jen.
We'll see you guys next week. C.I.C. Lounge.